Thanks for tuning in. This is Mr. McIntosh from A New Measure with a new video. And today we're going to be talking about how to get your tracks ready to record. If you find this video helpful, go ahead and press the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You got me? All right, bet. So, boom. First thing you want to do, man, is you got your track. All right, we got a track loaded up. It's good to go. We got it at the level where we want it, so it's not peaking. It's not extra loud. Now you want to add some tracks to record on, right? So what I like to do is I'll go here. I hit the plus sign here, and I give me an audio track. All right. And I go ahead and name the audio track. Vox 1 for vocal 1. All right, so you can just start with the one track here, and when the client comes, or if you're recording yourself, either way, what you'll do is you'll start recording on this track, and then what you'll notice is over time you'll have to create another track anyway. So sometimes what I like to do, just to kind of make my work a little easier, since I've been recording people for a long time, I had the experience to know that just having one track here is not going to be enough. So what I do is I just go ahead and press this button here and duplicate this track. All right. More than likely, when recording, there's going to be a situation where someone's going to have to punch. I mean, you do get some one take jakes, but at some point, you're going to need another track here. So if we're going to punch, these two right here would be good enough to go back and forth for a verse. So if we have a verse, we start recording here. We need to punch here. I'll start here recording on this track at about here, just to give them some time to feel where they were and kind of pick up that cadence and tone when they punch back in here at this area. So I'll use two tracks for that, just to prepare myself for that. Now, you can use more, and you may need to use more depending on how often you punch in and out. If you punch in and out frequently, I just do four. I would do four for that. So let's just go with an instance where we only need two. So these two would just be for verse one. Well, most songs have a chorus, so you're gonna have a chorus section now. A chorus is kind of tough to really gauge how many tracks you'll actually need, but I like to start off with four. So I'll add four more tracks. Right. And I would say that that's good enough to start off with. You never know, you may need additional tracks, but in the beginning, it's good to get a strong start by having a lot of this stuff set up for yourself in the beginning so you don't have to waste time during the recording session. The next thing that I would do is I would go ahead and add my plugins that I like to use, for recording. Now, the reason why I use these plugins during the recording process is for the person who's recording. The sound that you get when you have these plugins on versus off is a completely different experience, and it can affect your performance. So, the way that the person hears themselves definitely will affect their performance. If they can hear themselves and they sound really good, you'll get a much better performance out of them. It just works, for me. So I would take this track here, and the first thing that I would add, well, first of all, you got to know in the beginning, is auto tune needed on this song? Like that's the very first question you need to know when preparing for a session is, does this require auto tune? Because if it does require auto tune, then now not only do we need to know the tempo of the track, we also need to know what key the track is as well. So what I use to figure out the key of a track, let me turn this down some too. I know it's gonna come on real loud. Is I'll go here. Um, some of these are paid plugins. This one here is a paid plugin. You have to purchase this one. Antares Auto Tune Pro. I go to this one. Or no, excuse me. That's not it. That's not what I go to. Not for that. You want to go to Auto Key. It's also in the Antares plugins here. I have the Auto Tune Pro, the Auto Tune EFX, and also the Auto Key. So what you want to do is you want to use the Auto Key for this. What this is going to do is it's going to detect the key of the track playing. So let's go ahead and play it. Okay, it says a D major. So a D major it is. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and take that off. And you can go up here and just change this to D major just in case. Just to make things a little bit more organized. Label it a D major up there. So now if I'm doing auto tune, the first plugin I want to put on is my auto tune. Now, I have a few different auto tunes that I use. You can use the stock one if you don't have these. You can just go right here to pitch and then go to pitch correction and hit mono. It says it's a D major. So you want to go right here to scale. All right, so you want to go to major scale here. Yep, and put this here on D. D major scale here. Now you're in the same key as the session here. And that's a cool one to use. I mean, this is the one that comes stock with it. This is the response. I wouldn't mess with this at all. I wouldn't touch that. This is your response here. The faster is how fast it responds by the auto tune, how fast it corrects the voice. So that's gonna sound real auto tuning, like you're gonna be able to tell the auto tunes on there to the max when you push it all the way here. If you want a more subtle tune where it sounds like a natural voice, kinda, then you want to push this up. And then you just want to find a sweet spot of what makes the voice sound good. Every voice is different, so it's no formula for this. You kind of got to tinker with it to get it to where it sounds best. That's why if I'm prepping a session for someone else, I pretty much know what I want to do for my voice. But if you're prepping a session for someone else, what I would do is I would always start pretty fast. That way it can correct it really well. and then I would just tone it down some and find a sweet spot from there. And then it also depends on, what the person wants. If they say, hey, I don't want to sound like I have auto tune on my voice, but I want the auto tune I needed, but I want it to sound more natural, not a big like a big robot sounding sound. If they don't want that, then you kind of want to start a little bit higher, and then find a nice balance going down for them. Now, the one that I use the most for recording purposes, just because it works best while recording, typically, um, you want to add all of your plugins on at the end, just so you're not using so much memory. You don't want to crash your software. I like to use this one. I use AutoTune EFX, and I always do mono for vocals. And with this one, it's already in major scale. I would just put it on a D here, and it lets you pick your voice type. So if you're a real lower type voice, like mine's is a little bit deeper, I would probably do like a low male, um, alto tenor at the highest. But for the more higher pitched voices, it would probably be a soprano. So for me, I would start a low male. It just depends. This here, again, this is the retune speed, how fast it's gonna correct. I usually start at 0 and then scale it back some until I find a sweet spot. Humanizes how much it brings out the human element in it, so it doesn't sound so electronic. You can do a nice blend of these two to get a really nice sounding vocal. There's no formula for these. You would kind of have to find your sweet spot. What I would say do is, if you're just starting out, you don't know where your sweet spot is, and you're trying to find it. I would leave humanize at 0 and use retune speed at 0, record it, and then tinker. Because you're just trying to get a feel of how it would sound, so you can get a good performance. I also use this little template here just to add some more effect to it. I use the second one here. I go down to multi FX template here under the first one. Let's go here, go down to 7. Click this side button here and go to the second one. Click that one. And now I'm ready to record with auto tune. Second thing I would do is I would add an EQ. Now again, this is something that it varies per voice. But there is like a good starting point that you can use. To get a good recording. All right. So what I did there was I turned these on. These are normally off. This is the high pass filter and the low pass filter. So for vocals, the low end, you don't really need the bassy end of the vocals. So to get a nice clean vocal in the beginning, I would normally take this down here. I usually do in between like 120, 130. Yeah, about 120, 130. I'll knock it down there. About there is cool. Now right here in about 4 to 500 range, like towards the middle, it gets real boxy right there. So I would want to make a cut right there. And I'll tell you how I'm making these cuts here in a second. High pass, I wouldn't go too crazy on the high because you want to get your highs. But what I'll do is I'll go down to about 13.5 and I'll just keep it round, a little round there. I'll go in a little further. I'll go into about 11.2 there. And then I'll do another dip around the nasally sound here. It's usually like right up in here. Make a little cut there. And give a slight boost around 5,000. Just a slight boost. Nothing too crazy, just a slight win. Okay. So now I can do a whole video about frequencies here. We're gonna definitely have to do that on another video. But the short of it would be you want to cut out your low end here to about 123 hertz. You want to cut this out. This is how you, this middle one here on logic here, this one is how you bend or straighten your end of your band that you're controlling here. All right, so this is the low end. You want to take that out a great deal in vocals because you don't need that rumbly bass in there in the song. It's gonna interfere with the bass of the song anyway. Around 430, you want to make a slight dip there. You use this to go up and down, the middle button here. This is your volume. And this is how wide the range is, the frequency range. How wide does it cover the frequencies? You see? You want it to look like a little bell. Another dip at about 3K. Spike at about 5K. And you want to do a slight cut on the high end just so your S's aren't sissing in people's ear. Very loud. That can be a really irritating frequency right here. You have to be careful with your hi hats um, and your high frequencies here. So I would add that. Now, this would be the last plugin I would add. Some people would say that this probably doesn't make a difference, but I hear a difference, and I think it adds something to the performance hearing these subtle differences. And I would add a compressor here. Wouldn't do too much, I wouldn't compress it all crazy. I would just do a quick little compress on it, put the release at about 440, put the attack really quick. I put the attack at like 1 millisecond. Really out. Let's see. Yeah, about 1 millisecond. Knee, I wouldn't necessarily bother that. The ratio, I would probably kick this up to about 4:1. Now, this also depends on the voice, how much you would want to compress it, but you wouldn't want to do too much to it. I would just take this here. It's about 26. I wouldn't mess with makeup really too much until you actually record. Once you press the record button and you can hear, you can kind of tinker with this a little bit. But considering how far we went back here, really wasn't much. I would just give it 1 dB, bump up. Distortion, for a vocal, I wouldn't necessarily do too much there. With the output, I wouldn't leave this on 100%. I'll have a blend of dry before compression and a blend of afterwards, but a mostly blend of afterwards. So maybe like 85 to 80%. Um, yeah, so I'll do about 85. Leave that there. And yeah, with these three plugins, you can record an entire session. Um, Chorus and all. You can add more plugins after because you still don't have a delay or any reverb, which are really popular plugins, but also necessary plugins. You're gonna need some type of reverb to fill the space in the track, and the delay does that as well. Those are really solid effects to use. So at some point you want to use those, but those don't necessarily go on the track unless you're going for a really dramatic feel, which most people don't do that on music. Ad libs, maybe, but again, that's not during the verse section. And we didn't create any tracks for ad libs because that's an add on, and no, everyone doesn't do ad libs. So it takes me literally a half a second to press a button up there to create a new track. If we need to do ad libs, I'll do it at that time. But as far as like your reverb and delay, those would typically go here in sends, and that would be sending the signal from this track over to the other track, which I'll have to do another video on that as well too. So it looks like I got two other videos coming up for you guys. I got to give you a real breakdown of what's going on here in this EQ. Yeah. And then I also got to go over the send section with you to add the EQ, or excuse me, not the EQ, but the reverb and delay. But when I do that, I'll have some vocals here on the track for us to go ahead and deep dive into that. So, yeah, guys, I think that's going to be about it. That's going to wrap up this video here today. But hey, guys, man, thanks for watching. Follow us on IG at A New Measure. This is Mr. Macintosh. Holla in a minute.